He said it like it was a favor, a joke almost. She just needs someone to check on the house while she's in town. Don't overthink it. I didn't. Not until she opened the door. The last time I'd seen Lydia, she was a passing figure in an old photograph, laughing at some backyard barbecue before I'd even met her brother. Now she stood in the doorway of her late father's house, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp enough to slice through small talk. "Ryan sent you?" she asked, not moving aside yet. "Yeah," I said, holding up the grocery bag like proof. "He said you might need help fixing the porch light." Her gaze flicked down the hall, then back at me. "He would volunteer you for that." Still, she stepped aside. The house smelled faintly of cedar and something floral. Not perfume, more like the ghost of it. Dust danced in the light from the open window. A kettle was already boiling, which felt planned, somehow. "You don't look like someone who fixes things," she said, setting down 2 mugs. I gave a half smile. "You don't look like someone who needs help." She raised an eyebrow, a small flicker of amusement before she turned away. So we both misjudged. I followed her to the back room, where the old lamp hung loose from its socket. My tools clattered too loudly against the counter. The silence that followed pressed close, not awkward, just aware. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You were in school with Ryan, right?" "Yeah. He was the guy who never studied and still passed everything." "That sounds like him." Her lips curved slightly, then flattened again, like the smile had escaped before she could stop it. "He told me you're doing some kind of design work now." "Furniture. Mostly reclaimed wood. Keeps me from thinking too much." She tilted her head, curious. "And what's so dangerous about thinking?" I pretended to tighten the screws, though I'd already fixed the lamp. "Depends what you're thinking about." A pause. Then, the faintest hum of a laugh. "Touché." I turned, and she was closer than before. Not intentional, just a step too near for comfort. Her perfume wasn't floral after all. It was something warmer, like amber and paper and rain. She looked at the repaired lamp, reached up to test the bulb, and for a second her hand brushed my wrist. Static. That's all it was. But it felt like every nerve noticed. She didn't pull back immediately. Neither did I. Then she cleared her throat, stepped away. "Guess you did fix something after all." "Guess so," I said. My voice came out lower than I meant. When I packed up my tools, she followed me to the door. I expected her to thank me, maybe offer a polite goodbye. Instead, she rested her hand lightly on the edge of the doorframe, blocking it halfway. Her tone changed, softer, unreadable. "Ryan said you'd check on me again tomorrow? If you need me to." Her eyes held mine for a second too long. Then she smiled, faint but deliberate. "Good. Then I'll see you tomorrow." She pushed the door almost closed, then paused, and with one hand, quietly turned the lock from the inside. Not loud, not dramatic, just a click that felt louder than anything else in the room. And then she disappeared down the hall, leaving me standing there with the sound of that lock echoing in my chest. Later that night, when Ryan texted to ask how it went, I typed, "All good." But I didn't send it, because I couldn't stop thinking about that small, deliberate motion, her hand turning the lock, and how it hadn't felt like closing something, but opening it. Ryan never called that week, and I didn't tell him I'd gone back to Lydia's house twice. Both times she said she needed help, first with a loose cabinet hinge, then a leaky faucet. But the house wasn't falling apart. It just seemed lonely, like her. This time, a Thursday evening, rain softened the street outside, streaking the porch glass with silver. Lydia opened the door before I knocked, as if she'd been waiting near it. She looked tired, not in a dramatic way, but in the quiet kind you only notice when someone tries to hide it. "I can't get the sink to stop dripping," she said, pushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Thought I fixed it myself." "I didn't." "You did most of it right," I said when I crouched under the counter. "You just didn't tighten the gasket enough." "Story of my life," she murmured. I looked up. She didn't meet my eyes. Her voice wasn't self-pitying, just flat, like she'd said something truer than she meant to. She poured 2 mugs of coffee while I worked. The sound of dripping water slowed, steadied. Jazz played softly from the kitchen speaker, some old Coltrane record that filled the silences without actually covering them. "You always this patient?" she asked. Only with plumbing and people who make good coffee. That made her laugh, short, unguarded. Then she looked down, fingers tightening around her mug. You shouldn't flirt with your friend's sister. I smiled faintly. I didn't think I was. Exactly, she said, almost to herself. That's what worries me. The words hung there, heavy and half-spoken. She busied herself wiping a perfectly clean counter. I watched the small movements. The way her rings clicked softly against the ceramic mug, how her shoulders stayed straight even when her voice didn't. She changed the subject, asking about my work. I told her about the reclaimed wood pieces I'd been making for a gallery. She listened, really listened, head slightly tilted, eyes flicking up whenever I hesitated. When I mentioned my father's old tools, her expression shifted, not pity, just understanding. You kept them? She asked quietly. Yeah, I said. Didn't know what else to do with them. Her lips parted as if to say something, but she stopped herself. Instead, she turned back to the sink and pressed her hand flat against the counter, steadying it like it might move. You ever feel, she said finally, like you're fixing things that were never really broken, just tired of being used wrong? I didn't answer right away. The faucet stopped dripping, and the silence that followed made her words sound louder. When I finally stood, we were close enough that I noticed the faint scent of her coffee, the small freckle just below her collarbone. Her eyes lifted toward mine, searching for something I didn't have the right to offer. It's not dripping anymore, I said softly. She smiled just barely. That makes one of us. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she stepped back, brushing past me, her hand grazing my sleeve in that same unintentional, deliberate way. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, the air felt too still, too full of something unsaid. She didn't walk me to the door this time. I let myself out, the echo of her voice following me into the night. That makes one of us. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I knew I'd hear that line in my head long after I left. The storm started just after sunset. The kind that rolls in without warning. Thunder distant, air heavy, the sky split open in flashes. Lydia called earlier than usual. The power keeps flickering, she said. You don't have to come. But she didn't finish. She didn't have to. By the time I got there, the house was dim except for a few candles on the kitchen counter. She was sitting on the floor, legs folded under her, a blanket draped over her shoulders. The sight was disarming. Someone who never looked unprepared suddenly caught mid-realness. You came, she said, almost surprised. You sounded like you wanted me to. She gave a small smile. Maybe I did. I sat beside her. The power hummed once, then went out completely. The storm pressed against the windows like it wanted in. We talked about nothing and everything. How her brother used to steal the marshmallows from cereal boxes. How she used to write poems and never show them to anyone. How the smell of wet wood made her miss the place she grew up. The candlelight made her look younger and sadder at once. When she laughed, it was soft, tired, like she didn't trust it to last. I found myself memorizing tiny things. The way her thumb rubbed the rim of her cup, the faint scar near her jaw, the little sighs that came when silence stretched too long. Ryan used to tell me you were trouble, she said, teasing, but her eyes didn't match the tone. He wasn't wrong. I don't think you know what kind of trouble you are yet, she said. That's the dangerous kind. Lightning flickered, and for a second the whole room lit up. Her face, the edge of her smile, the reflection of candlelight in her eyes. Then darkness again. I shouldn't, she started, then stopped. What? She shook her head. Nothing. Forget it. But she was closer now, not enough to touch, but enough that her warmth reached across the space between us. I wanted to move, to say something that would make it less charged, but every instinct told me not to. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. She froze. The name on the screen, I caught it in the candlelight, David. She let it ring. Once, twice. Then she picked it up, stared at it, and set it back down without answering. When she looked at me again, her eyes were glassy. He doesn't know when to stop calling. An ex? She nodded. Ex-husband. Though sometimes I think that word doesn't mean what it should. Something in her voice cracked slightly, and before I could think, I reached out. Not a bold touch, just the briefest brush of my hand against hers. She didn't pull away. The silence after felt enormous. Outside, thunder rolled again. Inside, her breathing was uneven. She turned her hand slightly, fingers almost but not quite meeting mine. I should get that flashlight, she whispered, standing too fast, as if the movement could erase the moment. I let her go, but as she crossed the room, candlelight bending around her shape, the faintest tremor ran through her hand, the one I'd touched. And when the lights flickered back on a few minutes later, she was standing at the window, pretending to watch the storm, but I could tell she wasn't really looking outside. It had been days since the storm. The air still smelled faintly of rain, the way it does when something hasn't fully passed. I told myself I wouldn't go back, that it was starting to look like something it shouldn't. But that evening, Lydia texted, "If you're not busy, I could use a second pair of eyes on a bookshelf." I went. Of course I did. The house was too quiet when I arrived. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, a screwdriver beside her, staring at a pile of uneven boards. There was a half-finished glass of wine next to her. "Looks like a lost cause," I said. "So am I," she murmured, without looking up. It wasn't a joke, not really. I crouched beside her and picked up one of the boards. "You marked this wrong," I said softly. 2 inches too short. "Story of my life again," she said, trying to smile, failing. We worked in near silence, the sound of wood shifting, screws turning. Every now and then, her knee brushed mine, small, accidental, but not meaningless. When we finished, it was just past 9. She poured me a glass of wine without asking, sat opposite me on the floor. Her hair was loose this time. "You ever feel like your life just started without you?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Like you blinked and someone else took the wheel." She nodded slowly. "That's how it feels lately. I look around this house, and it's like everything still remembers him, even the light switches. And then you show up, and it's—" She stopped herself, her voice catching. I waited. "It's like the noise in my head quiets for a while," she said finally. "But that's not fair to you." Her words landed softly, but they hit hard. "I don't mind quiet," I said. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing all the things neither of us had said. "This isn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "You know that, right?" "I know. So why does it feel like it already has?" I didn't have an answer. The silence stretched long between us, too fragile to break. Outside, a car passed on the wet road, its headlights brushing across the window for a moment, then gone. She set her glass down. "I hate that I wait for you to show up, that I start fixing things just so there's a reason for you to come by." Her voice cracked then, a tiny fracture, gone as soon as it appeared. "I hate that too," I said quietly. "But I still come." We sat there, neither moving, the truth heavy in the room. The kind of truth that changes the air. She took a breath, held it, then exhaled slowly. "This," she gestured between us, "whatever it is, it's going to end badly." "I know," I said again. Her eyes glistened, and she gave the faintest smile, not from joy, but from surrender. "Then why does it feel worse not to start?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The only sound was the soft ticking of the wall clock, counting out the seconds we both pretended we didn't want. And when I finally looked up, she was already looking at me, eyes tired, mouth trembling, as if waiting for me to make the mistake she couldn't allow herself to make first. It happened on a Sunday, one of those muted afternoons that feel like the world is holding its breath. I wasn't supposed to be there. Lydia had said she needed space, that maybe a few days apart would help us remember what this is. I didn't argue. But when her brother dropped off an old box of family things and asked me to leave it at her place, I didn't say no either. When she opened the door, she looked surprised but not upset. "Just tired. I thought you weren't coming by anymore," she said. "I wasn't," I said. "Ryan asked me to drop this off." Her gaze fell to the box. "Of course he did." She stepped aside, letting me in. The air smelled faintly of rain again. She always left a window cracked, even in bad weather. The house felt heavier than usual, as if memory had its own gravity. "Do you want me to?" "No," she interrupted gently. "Stay?" "It's fine." She knelt beside the box, brushing dust from the lid. Inside were photographs, a few books, an old scarf. She reached in slowly, then froze. I saw it before she could hide it, A framed photo of her and a man, taken years ago. His arm around her shoulders, her eyes half lit by laughter. She set it down like it might burn her fingers. "Your husband?" I asked quietly. Her throat worked before she nodded. "David." This was before everything. I didn't push. She didn't offer more. "He used to come here every summer," she said after a moment, staring past the photo. "This was his father's house, not mine. When he left, I couldn't bring myself to sell it. Stupid, right?" "Not stupid," I said. "Some places hold you, even when you don't want them to." She smiled faintly. "You talk like someone twice your age. Maybe I've been listening to you too much." That made her laugh, but the sound broke halfway through. She rubbed her palms together, a nervous habit I'd started recognizing, and said, "You remind me of him sometimes." I froze. "I do. Not in the way you think," she said quickly. "It's not your face or your voice. It's the way you look at things. Like you're trying to save them before they disappear." I didn't know what to do with that. There was something fragile in her tone, like she was balancing between confession and regret. She picked up the photo again, studying it in silence. "He used to build shelves here. I never learned how. Maybe that's why I keep asking you to fix things. Maybe I just miss watching someone care enough to try." Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. I wanted to reach for her hand, but something stopped me. Maybe the ghost of that man, maybe my own decency. Instead, I said quietly, "You don't need me for that." "I know," she whispered, "but I still wanted you here." We sat like that for a while, two people surrounded by other people's memories. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant this time. She placed the photo face down on the table, as if that simple act could change the direction of time. And when she looked back at me, her expression had softened into something both dangerous and inevitable. "I don't think I'm missing him anymore," she said. "I think I'm missing who I was when he still looked at me that way." I didn't move. I couldn't. Because the way she said it, the way her eyes flicked to mine after, made it painfully clear that now, somehow, I was the one looking at her that way. The box of memories stayed on her dining table all week, untouched. Every time I came by, it was still there, lid closed, dust beginning to settle again. Neither of us mentioned it. We didn't need to. That Friday, she called, not for help, not for company. Just, "If you're not busy, I made too much soup." When I arrived, she was barefoot again, hair tied up messily, wearing an oversized sweater that didn't belong to her. The house smelled like thyme and something warm. The kind of smell that makes silence feel full. We ate at the kitchen counter. No music, no candles, no storm this time. Just rain tapping lightly against the window, the rhythm of 2 spoons in 2 bowls. "I've been thinking," she said finally, setting her spoon down, "about how we keep trying to fix things in this house. Maybe it's not the house." I looked up. "You mean us?" She smiled faintly. "I mean me. But maybe also us." There was no accusation in her tone, no apology either. Just an acceptance that felt heavier than either. "I keep wondering where the line is," I said. Her gaze lingered on me, searching. Between what and what? Between care and wanting. She exhaled slowly, the smallest tremor in her voice. "I stopped knowing that line a while ago." The words hung there, fragile, honest. She reached across the counter then, her hand pausing halfway, fingers uncertain. I met her halfway, my fingertips brushing hers, just enough for both of us to feel it. No grasp, no pull, just contact. Her skin was warm, her pulse faint but present. "I don't want to pretend anymore," she said quietly. "But I don't know what not pretending means either. Maybe it just means this," I whispered. Her eyes closed for a moment, as if memorizing the air between us. Then she leaned forward, not to kiss me, not even close, just enough that her forehead rested lightly against mine. It was such a small gesture, but it broke something open. I could feel her breath, slow and uneven. Her sweater brushed my arm. The world outside faded into rain and heartbeat. "I thought I was done feeling like this," she murmured. "Like I could still be seen." "You are," I said. "You've been this whole time." Her laugh came out like a sigh. Then maybe I was looking in the wrong direction. We stayed like that, forehead to forehead, hands resting between us, saying nothing else. There was no kiss, no grand confession. Just the quiet understanding that something irreversible had already happened and that naming it wouldn't change a thing. Eventually, she pulled back, eyes glistening but steady. You should go before I ask you to stay. I nodded, but neither of us moved. The clock ticked, rain softened, and the soup went cold. And when I finally did stand to leave, she reached out, not to stop me, just to straighten the collar of my jacket, fingers lingering for half a second too long. That was all. But as I stepped outside, the rain catching in my hair, I realized she hadn't said goodbye. And maybe she never would, because whatever this was, it wasn't ending. It was just finding its quiet place to live. It's been 6 months since I last saw Lydia. Funny how you can measure time not in days, but in silences, the kind that still echo long after a door closes. She moved back to the city, closer to her work, closer to something like a life again. I stayed here, fixing furniture, building things that didn't talk back. Every now and then, I still catch myself driving past her old house, the one with the porch light we replaced together. It still works. Still glows the same soft gold at night. Ryan mentioned she's doing well. He doesn't know, not really. He just says it the way people do when they're guessing. I don't ask. I just nod. What I do know is this. She changed the way I look at quiet moments. Before Lydia, I thought connection was loud. Big gestures, bright emotions, fireworks. She taught me that it's the pauses that matter. The held breath before you speak. The hand that stops just short of touching. The space where two people understand something too real to say out loud. She never told me what she felt that night. The last one. The one with the soup and the rain. She didn't have to. Everything she didn't say filled the air so completely that words would have ruined it. And maybe that's the truth about love, the kind that doesn't fit neatly into endings. It's not about what you get to keep. It's about what changes in you because of it. I used to think I wanted her to say stay. Now I realize it meant more that she didn't. That she trusted me enough to leave things honest, unfinished, alive. Sometimes, when I'm sanding down an old piece of wood or gluing something cracked in half, I catch myself thinking of her hands, steady, careful, always searching for something to fix even when it wasn't broken. I think about how she said, maybe I just miss being seen. And I wonder if she ever knew she made me feel seen too, in a way that still hums under my skin when the day gets too quiet. Maybe that's what we were. Two people finding the same kind of loneliness in each other and realizing it wasn't such a terrible thing to share for a while. There's peace in that, I think. Not the kind that comes from closure, but from acceptance, the knowing that some connections aren't meant to be owned, only remembered. I don't drive past her house as much anymore. The light's still there, steady, soft, reliable, like she was. Like she'll probably always be in some small corner of my mind. And I guess that's enough. Because sometimes the story doesn't end with a kiss or a goodbye. Sometimes it just ends quietly, with two people learning how to live with what they found in each other, even after they've let go. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?